so first of all, if me or anyone says a fragrance is bad, that doesn't mean not good. What it means is not for me. So let's get that out the way. You can dispute that if you want, but that is the honest truth. Human taste is subjective. No fragrance is objectively bad, because even
Secretions Magnifique, there's a following out there. I know there's people who actually enjoy that fragrance. I know you're out there. Expose yourself.
And another piece of evidence is that the fragrances I'm about to talk about, some of you may have loved from first sniff. I did not. And in doing some reflection, which I like to do, and I like to encourage you guys to do as much as you can, what I realized is the primary reason why I didn't like most of these fragrances was because of my expectations. I had expectations about them. And you know the saying, it's cliche, but it's true. Expectations are the thief of joy. Obviously, we cannot avoid them. We're emotional beings. We are thinking beings. We can't avoid them. We cannot discard them, but we can at least be mindful of them. You can gain more power over your experience if you can tell yourself, I have an expectation of what this will be, but there's a good chance it won't be that. And frankly, it goes without saying that that can apply to anything in life, especially people. Keep that in mind. So with that out the way, let's talk about these 5 fragrances that I thought were bad, but I was wrong. First one up here, I am a little bit embarrassed to admit this because I love this brand. I love the other fragrance that they have immensely. This one, I had an expectation about it, and it just wasn't what I thought it would be. When you see a note breakdown, be careful, move with caution. If you see your favorite note or if you see an interesting note in a breakdown of an upcoming fragrance, do not anchor yourself to that note expecting, oh, it's gonna have watermelon, so I can't wait to smell that watermelon. That was the case with Bon Vivre from Naughton & Wilson. I went into this thinking I was gonna get a ton of gin and a ton of watermelon. I do get some gin and I get almost no watermelon, to be honest. At least in my experience, some of you might be different, and that is going to apply to all of these fragrances or any fragrance in general. Our experiences will be different based on our noses and our skin. Nonetheless, this is a beautiful scent. The more I've actually given it full wearings, the more it captivates me. It is definitely citrusy and fresh. It has a little bit of a fougere vibe. There's this kind of aromatic, almost creamy lavender feel. There's definitely a little bit of a woody feel in the background. It's very lively, but it is very refined and classy, a little bit mature, but perhaps a little bit less so than gravitas, which is amazing. So since I've shedded my expectations of what I thought this would be, now I can appreciate it for what it actually is. And nothing I can do will change that. No matter what you want to feel, you're not going to change what a fragrance is. You just can't. We can't change the matter, but you can grow into it if you soften. That is Bon Vivre from Naughton & Wilson. This next fragrance is a designer fragrance, and to be honest, I had an interesting and very dynamic experience with it. When I first got it, I smelled it, and I admitted to myself, okay, this is not exactly what I expected. Granted, I didn't know exactly what I was expecting, but it surprised me nonetheless. So I liked it. I'm like, this is still good. I wore it a little bit, and then it started to rub me the wrong way. And I'm like, I don't really care for this fragrance anymore. So I put it away, and I've since revisited it.
I always struggle with those two words together, revisited it.
Revisited it.
This is coming from Issey Miyake, and this is called Or Encens, or L'Odyssée pour un Or Encens, technically. This is primarily woods and rose, incense and leather. There's a fresh incense quality here, so it is quite airy. There's a bit of a dry airiness to it. It is a little bit sweet, not overtly. It is definitely a little bit spicy. There's a coolingness and a warmth to it all at the same time. It's rosy, sweet, airy incense with leather and woods backing it up. It gets quite dark and dry on the skin. I've noticed as it dries down, I love it more and more. It gets quite woody on my skin, almost like oud in a way, but not oud. I've really grown to enjoy this stuff. It is very different. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe more incense and less rose, perhaps. Rose is pretty prominent in here, but not overtaking the profile. I wouldn't call it a rose fragrance. Lovely stuff. That is Or Encens. This next fragrance, man, this is one that I assumed that even though I like the scent of it, I felt like no one's gonna like this on my skin. This thing is too bizarre, and it's also a little bit too specific. It's too associative. People are gonna assume things about me if they smell this on me. Where can I wear this? I was just running that through my mind perpetually and convinced myself like, I don't really like this stuff. It's not wearable. I have no use for it. But I keep coming back to it. I kept coming back. There was something gravitational about it. And I really enjoy this stuff. It's not my first recommendation because you have to like cannabis. This is coming from Fragrance Du Bois. This is called Cannabis Blue. And this is a fresh, herbal, sour, pungent fragrance because cannabis can be kind of sour and it's quite strong in here. It smells like cannabis. But there is this kind of rounded, creamy woodiness in there that kind of surrounds the cannabis that kind of saves the day for me on my skin. It becomes sweet and creamy and quite beautiful. Strangely enough, this is a fragrance that I've shown to others blindly, and they did not say this smells like weed or it smells like marijuana or cannabis. It wasn't until after I told them what it was and like, oh yeah, I guess I can see that. So I've gotten a little bit of a new interest in this fragrance. I'm not writing it off. I think it smells wonderful. I think it's quite unique. Still not for everyone, but if you're looking for something very different in this dark herbaceous direction, this is one to maybe check out. Okay, up next is a big one. This was a big release for the House of Creed last year, 2021. I borrowed my buddy Corbin's bottle for my first impressions video, and I was almost appalled. I was like,
wait, what is this?
This was not what I expected at all, because it was a flanker of its original, which I love. This is coming from Creed. This is called Viking Cologne. When I first smelled it, it almost smelled like toilet water, toilet cleaner, or something strange, but I can say that it has macerated. Something has changed with this fragrance. It has gotten richer, it has gotten juicier, it's actually gotten stronger. The citruses are more robust. The aromatic notes are way more opulent. There's something about it that after just sitting for a while, it really did change. It smells way more barbershop now than it did before. Before it was just kind of light, citrusy, and kind of wimpy, but now it does remind me more of the original Viking, which I love. So it does actually seem like a flanker. So maybe it just needed some time. It's night and day. It's crazy how much it changed just by sitting for at least 6 months, whatever it was sitting for. So give your fragrances some time, especially Creed. I find that they do kind of open up over time if you keep them in a safe place, dark, cool, and dry. It smells wonderful. Now the only verdict is to see if Grace likes it, because she historically hates this on my skin. But maybe it'll be different. I'll report back. And finally, from Parfum de Marly, I have outwardly explained my disdain is a strong word, but I've really just not liked this fragrance much at all. It just becomes kind of repulsive on my skin. And I had a lot of you guys saying, you gotta wear it in the winter, wear it in the winter, wear it when it's cold, you'll see. And I was just like, we'll see. I gotta admit, this stuff is really enjoyable. This is called Carlisle. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I really enjoy this stuff. It's really grown on me. Before I was getting this very sharp, pungent, earthy patchouli that was almost sour, bitter I should say, not sour, bitter on my skin as it dried, and I could not stand to get anywhere near it, so I didn't want it anywhere in my bubble. For some reason, I don't really detect that anymore. The sweetness has overtaken things, the dark earthiness has overtaken things. I do get that apple, it's spicy, it's warm. It is a little bit rough around the edges still, but it's something that I really love in the air. It comes off quite elegant, but still very commanding and powerful. Not my favorite from the house still, but it's up there. I'd say it's in the top 5 of what I've smelled from the house. I see why people enjoy it. It still does bear resemblance to something like Triumph of Bacchus from Argos, which I prefer. I prefer Triumph of Bacchus. It has more nuance to it, which makes it just more complex and more interesting to my nose. This is a little bit simpler, but still very good and still a little bit off the beaten path in terms of fragrances. It's not mainstream here. Good stuff, Carlisle. So that's gonna do it for me. I would love to know, what is your experience with any of these fragrances, whether it was love at first sniff, not sure at first sniff, or hate at first sniff, and what is one fragrance that you did not like at first, maybe you were completely repulsed by it, you've come back and you've realized, man, this is actually really, really, really good. I love it. and you totally saw that flip from night to day. Let me know what that is down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Please consider subscribing, joining the Fresh Squad. It'll be the easiest and the least expensive thing you've done all day because it's free. And thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.